Welcome everybody to our latest TTG face-to-face interview. I'm Jennifer Morris, I'm the news editor. I'm joined today by Jed Brown, who is CEO of Low Season Traveller. Welcome, Jed.
Good afternoon, Jennifer. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. It'd be great if you could start off, Jed, by explaining to us a little bit about you and your background. You've been in the industry for a long time, and then explain how Low Season Traveller is set up. It's a very intriguing concept.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, I have been in the industry for quite a while, more than I realised actually. I started out in the industry back in the early '90s. I was looking for a job after university, as we all were, to try and pay off the debts even back then. And I got a job at Thomas Cook in Manchester Airport, the Foreign Exchange, which was great fun. Actually, loved working in the airport and meeting travellers, going off to destinations that I'd never been to, and frankly, never thought I would ever get to myself personally. They all sounded so exotic, Puerto Plata and all these kind of places. And after I'd been there for a while, I moved on to the retail branch side, and somebody said to me, a manager actually, a guy called Malcolm Saul. I don't know if he won't still be with Thomas Cook because sadly Thomas Cook has demised. And he said, look, you should really try selling holidays. I think you'd be really good, and I think you'd enjoy it. So I started selling holidays at Thomas Cook and absolutely loved it. Selling people's dreams, that largest expense that they had in the year for the most part, and it was one that they really enjoyed spending. And I loved the planning of it. I loved every aspect of it. So I worked at Thomas Cook for 6 or 7 years. Before then getting a great job at Kuoni, and I still have a big soft spot for Kuoni. So I worked down in Dorking for 4 or 5 years on the trade sales side of things. And it was great because that was really a time where part of my role was to bring different groups of agents to different exotic locations around the world with Kuoni as on fam trips. And most of those fam trips were during the low seasons. And that was when I first sort of realized that, actually this is a great time to see a lot of these destinations. The fam trips were held then because there were seats, there was, rooms in the hotels. And I got to go on loads of these fam trips. It was tremendous. Got to see the world and somebody else picking up the tab. That for me was, I was living the dream, quite frankly, but developing professionally very, very much so as well. I then did some work then at My Travel with the old Tradewinds brand, for anyone that can remember that. So I worked at Bridgecrest Tradewinds for a few years. And then I spent the bulk of the more recent years at a company called Routes, which many of your audience might be familiar with. Routes are the events where the world's airlines, airports and tourism authorities all get together to discuss and agree the viability of new air services. And that was tremendously rewarding, very different side of the industry, one that we don't always think about actually. But my sort of view on Routes at the time is it was always airports and airlines getting together to meet, to discuss and agree new air services. And with a tourism head on, I was thinking, well, tourism authorities, they should really be a part of this conversation. So I made it my mission to try and bring tourism authorities into those conversations. And that was, nearly 15 years ago now. And now they're a key part of those conversations. But what it also did is it gave me a view on global travel and tourism, because you're looking at every region of the world. And therefore, then I started to follow very closely all of the global trends in terms of visitor arrivals, in terms of the peaks and flows. And that kept me in really good stead, really for the rest of my career in travel. For me, the travel industry was not just about what's going on in the UK, inbound and outbound. It was a global place, and it was a global thing, and that very much sort of kept me in good stead for eventually where I came to with Low Season Traveller. And Low Season Traveller, really that came to me in 2018, where I'd been following, like I guess you and a lot of your viewers and audience, when we've been seeing all of this stuff about over tourism, and I was thinking, this just can't go on. You see these pictures and images of destinations that are absolutely thronged with tourists. You see the arrivals figures going through the roof. The predictions for the UNWTO visitor arrivals were going absolutely bananas. And I just thought this actually isn't sustainable. And my big fear was I've got two young daughters, and I'm speaking from one of my youngest daughter's bedroom. A big fear was, I've benefited so much from the travel industry, from traveling, understanding different cultures, different ways of lives, and seeing how other people live. And my big fear was that in order to curb over tourism, you could potentially see a time when prices would increase and travel would return to the realms only of the wealthy or the relatively wealthy. And, my daughters might not be in that bracket. So what does that mean? That means they're not going to be able to benefit from experiencing the world that I've experienced. And that would be a crying shame. So I sort of thought, well, look, okay, the way in which we're going, prices are going to have to increase during the peak seasons. Therefore, the best opportunity that large parts of the population will have is traveling during the low seasons. And actually, that's not a bad time to travel. So I started to research on any organizations out there that just focus on the low seasons. And unbelievably, there's not a single organization in the world that focuses only on the low seasons, which just beggars belief, frankly. And that's quite indicative, I think, of our industry. I think, maybe we've been a little bit lazy or taken our eye off the ball, but incredible that nobody ever thought to promote proactively the low seasons in our destinations.
Well, presumably it's also pretty intrinsically linked to airlines and where, sort of, scheduled airlines anyway, and where they're flying to. And obviously at the moment they seem to have the summer season, especially for the Med and that kind of thing. I mean, is that something that you guys obviously have to take into account with where you're sort of pitching? You look at the schedules, can you influence charters at all, or how does it all work? How does the entire setup work, really?
How does it work? It's that chicken and the egg, isn't it? It's you have to build the supply and the demand, and that's that's one of the key challenges. Before an airline will fly in, they want to know that there's the demand for flights at that particular time of the year. And for the hotels and the industry at that side, they want to know that there's the airlift before they're going to make sure that they're open and they're organizing stuff. So it kind of has to be done in a coordinated approach, really. But it was interesting, when I first came up with the idea and I floated it past, friends and family and everybody else a couple of years ago, and they were saying, well, really, people with families, they have to go during the summer holidays, and that's peak. So you're not going to be there for people with kids. And initially I thought, well, okay, I'll take the over 45s and the under 30s, who either haven't got kids or have got kids that have left home, which is a huge market. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's still still a good niche to be involved in. But then as I got into this kind of discovery about the low seasons, I started to learn that there are so many low seasons during school holidays that I hadn't realized. And that really then made me think, wow, okay, this changes things slightly. Now low season travel literally can be for anyone, including families.
Do you mean in terms of half-term breaks and Christmas?
Absolutely. Like summer holidays, Antigua, low season, wonderful destination. Low season is in our summer holidays. How many people know that? I don't think that people really realize. And if they do realize, they assume that, if they look on a rainfall chart somewhere, it'll probably tell them that there's more rainfall then than at any other time of the year. But, you and I know, we're well traveled in the tropics and places like that. It'll rain for 2 hours like you've never seen rain in your life. But the rest of the time it's fine. So, there's, and destinations like Madrid, Madrid's summer, July and August, and it's hot in Madrid, obviously. Now some would say it's too hot to be in a city. For me, if it's absolutely uncrowded and I can get it for, half the price of what I would pay any other time of the year, I'll take a break in Madrid in the summer holidays, no problem. And it's a wonderful destination.
Yeah. And so I think Low Season Travel is described as a destination marketing company. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like it's sort of hesitantly, and that's because I don't know how to describe us. Being really honest, I'm not one for sort of pigeonholing. And look, the travel industry is moving on, and it's moving on really quickly. And we talk about travel agents and tour operators still, and yet most of the travel agents I know, they tour operate as well. They package stuff up themselves, and most tour operators sell directly to the public. So, they're kind of travel agents as well. So for me, the terms, relatively speaking, are meaningless. They're travel providers, and we're not a travel provider. I never really set up to be somebody who's selling holidays, and certainly in the current climate, I would say there's challenges with being a primary on a booking. You know, we see what the travel agents, God love them, have been through over the past couple of months, and you know, fair play to them. I wouldn't want that headache, frankly. So what I wanted to do is instead have it as I suppose an inspiration website. I wanted to market destinations during their low seasons only, and be a central point for destinations and hotels where, you know, they can give us all of the low season information and the advantages of low season travel in their destination, and we'll put it all together in one place. And that's what we've become. So are we a destination marketing company, an inspiration company? I don't know. We're a travel company, and we want to inspire people to travel during the low seasons. Beyond that, you know, we don't sell ourselves. We have a great relationship with a company called Designer Travel, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Amanda Matthews, when we went to her first off with this, just said, "Gosh, absolutely love this. I want to support it in any way I can." And she very kindly then said, "Look, we'll naturally we'll take the bookings for you if you'd like," which I thought was fantastic. Actually, it worked for us because we didn't want to take the bookings ourselves. But the natural thing is, if you're inspiring somebody, if they've listened to a podcast, they've seen a video, they've read about a destination, the next logical step is, okay, I want to book this, and therefore we had to have something on the site to, you know, to sort of some way of taking that booking. And Designer Travel, you know, they've won multiple awards. They're absolutely fantastic, and they're great partners to have. So we're really happy with them.
They actually recently been crowned TTG Top 50 best agency in the Northwest. So yeah, I was actually the one who visited them. So yeah.
Oh, really?
yeah.
But you know what was really embarrassing? What was really embarrassing is I shared out the fact that they'd won the TTG award on LinkedIn. And a whole load of comments were saying, "Well done, Jed. Great to see this." And I was thinking, no. It wasn't,
all thanks to the...
Amanda said she would have just rolled with it, but you know.
Okay. So what's the sort of journey then? If so you're mainly targeting consumers. A consumer will land on your website, and then what happens? They can kind of look at different... How's it kind of organized and sorted for them?
Yeah, it's I suppose on a base level, when you go on the website, we wanted it to be really rich in images, and it will be rich in video content as well further down the line. That's the plans for it. We're going to be launching Low Season Traveler TV in the coming weeks and months. But we wanted it to be, I don't know if I can say this, Jennifer, but travel porn. Yeah, we wanted it to be when you look at the pictures, you know, images really build up what a destination is like. So we just wanted to have some really beautiful images of the destinations. And that's something that we invested quite heavily in, actually, is made sure that we got good images. One of the key parts of low season travel, and this is where I find it interesting, I wanted to have pictures that were only taken during the low seasons in each case, because I wanted to be honest. And I thought that's how we'll stand out from all other travel companies. And then you realize when you do your research that all travel companies, or most of them, the pictures that they use, vast majority are taken during the low season. Why are they taken during the low season? Because, you know, if you show that picture of that beach in high season when it's absolutely rammed, that's not beautiful. That's not going to sell it. So they all use pictures of Maya Bay in Thailand when it's, you know, really, really quiet in the low season. They don't show it when it's thronged with boats, which is the experience for about 80% of travelers. So I wanted to try and, you know, I wanted to be as authentic as we possibly could. So I suppose in that regard, we are hopefully, and what we aspire to be, is just to be very, very honest about what we sell and what we promote. And that means being honest about the low seasons. You know, if there is a downside to a destination during its low season months, we have to be upfront about it. We have to be honest about it. But if, you know, we'll also be honest about the good stuff as well. I think that's important.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of our viewers and readers will be travel agents and tour operators. Other than Designer Travel, you know, there are opportunities for other agents or operators to work with you. Is it something that you intend for them to use as a kind of inspiration tool to show their own clients?
Absolutely.
Is that, yeah?
I think they can do that without, you know, obviously, you know, I would always want to be very trade friendly. Having been a travel agent and, you know, sharing the pain as well as the joys that travel agents go through on a regular basis. But we do want it to be travel agent friendly, and I'd like it to be a resource for travel agents. And for that, you know, for that reason as well, what I wanted to create was a tool which reflects the growing niche of low season travelers. So as more and more people start to look for low season travel, maybe, by the way, because they want to avoid the crowds due to social distancing reasons, which is, what I'm sure is a result of COVID-19. But when I was looking at this, I only like to travel during the low seasons wherever possible. And if I go onto Google and I type in when's the low season in Turkey, I'll get some articles. If I type in when's the low season in Mallorca, I'll get some articles. What if my starting point is, which it is, I know when I can travel, show me where it's the low season. And you can't put that into Google. It doesn't, it doesn't work. So what we created as part of it, and you can go on the destinations tab on our site, is you highlight the month when you're interested in traveling, and then different flags will appear on the map below, and it will show you where in the world it's low season. And then when you click on each one, it'll show you why it's the low season and why it's a great time to visit, and some of the highlights of the low season, some insider guides and links to some of the podcasts from different people who are based in those locations as well. It's a pretty cool tool. So yeah, hopefully travel agents would be able to use that.
Okay, brilliant. I want to talk a little bit about why in your press release, Jed, you said kind of now, well, you've been working on Low Season Traveller for a couple of years, and it's been sort of in development, but the current pandemic sort of acted as a bit of a catalyst for launch. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is? I mean,
yeah. It was interesting. So we originally planned the launch. It was in February, first of all, and then there was mutterings about coronavirus, and we thought, oh, we'll delay it for a couple of weeks, and then it became clear that coronavirus was here. And because the origins of the company was about protecting against over tourism, and all of a sudden we went from over tourism to zero tourism like that. And I was thinking, oh, this is really not good. This is not a good time to launch a business, and especially a business like ours. And then the irony was, we trademarked the expression "travel without the crowds." And again, that was in the back of my mind at the time, was about over tourism. Travel without the crowds. Don't go where the over tourism is. Travel without the crowds. And then it sort of clicked that actually, as people were socially distanced and looking to be socially distanced 2 meters apart, travel without the crowds actually brings on a whole new meaning, because there's a feeling that people are going to be a little bit more conscious now of the kind of crowded scenes that we've seen in different holiday destinations. And there's that feeling of, yeah, actually, I think low season travel is going to come to its fore right now. The other reason is that, in a lot of the destinations, if you look at Southern Europe, for example, a lot of those destinations, they rely really heavily on 4 or 5 months in the summer season to make their money for the year, for the most part. So they have about 70% arrivals during those key months. What if the unthinkable happens and you don't get even half of what you were going to get for those 5 months? And that's what we're looking at this year. They're going to have to promote themselves outside of those months. And from a traveler's point of view, a lot of us are, as consumers now, we're kind of hanging back saying, well, look, I'm not ready. I want to get away. I just want to wait and see how the land lies. Maybe it might be November, it might be December. And I think that's, again, that kind of lends itself then to, okay, we need to find out where's good during those times, where's good in the low season. And then the last thing was the ABTA reports came out in, I think it was either January or February. They had the trends report. And it was talking about this, the consumers are now looking for more of the slow travel, the experiential travel. And they wanted to immerse themselves into the destination. And I thought, again, that's all stuff which is that's what low season travelers, that's what they do. That's what they want to do. And that's how they want to experience the world. So I think I wouldn't have planned it this way, but I think now is absolutely the right time for low season travel, because we've got this once in a lifetime opportunity to finally flatten out seasonality. And I'm hoping that we can grasp it with both hands.
Yeah. And you're hopeful that, obviously this year that will happen, and people will presumably travel later in the summer season will be extended, but that once people experience that, then they'll be inspired, next year to perhaps return at a similar time of year. Because sometimes it just takes people sort of seeing it to believe it, if you know what I mean, and being convinced that, it can be actually quite sunny in Spain in November or whatever.
I mean, as well, I think you're right as well, in that, there are a lot of people that are low season travelers already. The amount of times I'm speaking to people and they're saying, gosh, that's me. I prefer traveling during the low seasons because it's cheaper and it's quieter and I get to interact with the locals. And I think maybe it's a case that there's just nobody that's decided to sort of say, look, we need to actually call this a niche of our industry, and we need to actually, ready people around it. And, people said to me, oh, what if other people start selling, low season travel and start calling it, low season travel? We promote low season travel. I said, that's great. Fantastic. Genuinely, I think everybody should embrace it, because it's not about taking away from the peak season stuff. It's an addition to that, because it won't be for everyone. There will be people that will only want to travel for whatever reasons during the peak seasons. They'll always be there. But for the others, we can shift them out slightly. And, again, not sort of laboring too much on the over-tourism, but I viewed it as, and stick with me on this one, Jennifer, empty cans of baked beans. Imagine 12 in front of you, and they represent the months of the year, okay? So those ones, June, July, August, September, they're full to the brim with beans and they're spilling out everywhere. And people are saying, yeah, but we need more tourists, so we're going to get some more cans and put them there. And it's like, well, hold on. You've got 3 cans either side and they're practically empty. Surely it makes logical sense to fill up all of those first. If we look at filling up all the cans of beans, if we look at filling all of the different months, then actually we can sustainably and responsibly increase tourism still and keep it going the way in which it's going. We can't do that if we're still looking at growing and we're just focusing on the same times of the year and the same pressure points. Then it's not going to be sustainable. We're going to see more signs, tourists go home and all this kind of stuff in the likes of Barcelona and Dubrovnik and Venice and everywhere else. So for me, it's the only chance we've got of responsibly growing tourism.
And presumably you've had, you've already touched upon the fact that you've had extensive conversations, I'm sure, with tourism boards and hotels. Are there any other sort of partners that you speak to? Airlines, have you had much kind of positive dialogue with them about perhaps putting on flights in different times of year, or
we haven't yet.
Communicating this demand?
We haven't yet, but we absolutely, we absolutely want to go that way for sure. I think the first thing, the first thing really is, with anything like this, when you're setting up a business, it's about baby steps. You've just got to take those baby steps. The ambitions are there and they're absolutely huge. The first things first, we've got to get more destinations. So, on the website at the moment, we've got 22, 23 destinations. We've barely scratched the surface. We need to get more destinations on there. We need to get more hotels on there. People that are sort of, warming up to this idea and want to shout about it. And then absolutely, airlines then will be a key part of it. But again, I suspect that the airlines will start to get more interested once there's an awful lot more movement on low seasons and, okay, this is really starting to move now. Then the airlines will start to get involved, saying, okay, we can see the hoteliers are behind it, the destinations are behind it. Yeah, we need to get behind this as well.
Yeah,
but
it's a big commitment for them, isn't it?
It's a huge commitment. And you know what? The airlines are under huge pressure as it is right now. And they've suffered, as much as anybody out there, really.
I was going to ask you a little bit about, because it's not all about money, is it, your website? You, I think you said in your release that you donate half of the profits to charities. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of things?
Yeah, on the booking side. So the way in which the model works, everybody always asks, it's the first question is, how do you make your money? Which I always find kind of, I suppose it's a natural question to ask. I just find it slightly bemusing. But for us on the booking side, that was never about where we were going to be able to pay for ourselves and make our money. We make our money from the tourism authorities, the hoteliers, anybody that wants to promote their destination during the low seasons. We'll work on a subscription level with those guys, and that's where we'll make that money. On the booking side, any bookings that come via our website, we wanted rather than to take a commission, which, could be potentially huge if it goes the way in which we suspect it's going to go, we wanted that to go straight back to local communities. And part of that is, frankly, it's the right thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do, but also it lets travelers know that not only if they book via, going via low season traveler, not only are they going at the more responsible time of the year, but the money from their booking, or a percentage of it, at least a small commission amount, will go directly to a local community-run charity or project in the destination that they're traveling to. It just feels right, and it feels like a responsible thing to do. And we can do that because we are a privately run company. We don't have any shareholders to serve. If you're a shareholder-led organization, you have to serve the shareholders. To be honest, that has to be your first priority as a business. You have to serve your shareholders. We don't have to do that. So we can give 50%, or actually for this year, we've said 100% of those profits from those bookings. We can give that straight to local community-run charities. And, part of it was as well, it's something that others can't do, and it's quite a rare thing. But as well, it just it feels right, and it feels good as well. It feels nice.
I'm sure that will translate to the consumer as well. If that's kind of advertised as something that happens,
I think it'll resonate with them. What we're looking forward to is at the end of the year, then showing which different projects we've helped and showing that up. But what we're also trying to do is we're in negotiations at the moment with an organisation which is going to allow us to put money into projects, but also to have those projects on the site, so that if travellers come through onto the site and they go onto Antigua, if they wish to, they can go and visit the project for themselves, and sort of see where the that commission or that money that they've paid has gone towards, which would kind of round it off quite nicely as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was just wondering, has the kind of the reaction from tourist boards been sort of overwhelmingly positive? I can't see in what way they'd find sort of negative in spreading their season, but I mean, I suppose people aren't always up for change, and
no, it's been hugely positive. The irony is, I first started touting this to different tourism authorities in World Travel Market last year, and it was just so funny because I was saying, look, we promote only the low seasons. I thought, but Jed, that's where we've got the problem. And I was like, yeah, I know, obviously, of course you have. That's where everybody has the problem, of course. And yeah, they're really, really positive about it. I think the challenge is, to be absolutely upfront, right now, nobody's got money. We're all in survival mode. COVID-19 has taught us that there is one thing which is more important than profit, and that's just survival. So all of a sudden we've gone from, we need to make money to, what, I just want to make sure I've got a business next year. That's the first priority. And that's the same with hoteliers, tourism authorities, everybody is all the same on that. We just want to survive this year. Next year, we'll deal with that when it comes to it. But this is not the time to be making money. And we just, because we're a startup, we accept that completely. The fact of the matter is that any revenues that we get right now is 100% plus increase on what we had last year because we didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, bizarrely, we can't fail. Because also we don't have any high costs at the moment. Other businesses, travel agents, tour operators, they've got huge costs and they're really struggling. And God, I feel sorry for them. Thankfully, because we're at the start of our journey, frankly, we've got absolutely nothing to lose. Any sales that we get is more than we've ever had before. So, we're lucky, really.
Yeah, brilliant. I imagine I know what the theme will be, but I was going to ask you a little bit, given your extensive experience in the industry, what your kind of thoughts are on where we go from here as an industry, sort of beyond, your own business. Are there any kind of overriding themes that you're going to think we're going to see this time next year? Is it going to be a completely different landscape to what we've known previously, do you think?
I think it's going to be a different landscape in many ways. I think, I think you're going to see less airlines. I don't think we've really started to see the collapse yet. For me, I think the biggest challenge that we've got, I equated it to, I was doing an article earlier on this morning, and I equated it to an earthquake going off in the middle of the ocean. The earthquake's gone off, but the tsunami hasn't hit us yet. And I think as an industry, the casualties will only really start to show through the next half of the year. And I think that's when we'll really understand the damage that's been done to our industry. I think airlines, there'll be airlines that'll be going bust, and I'm sure they'll be replaced by other airlines in due course. I think it will start to settle down, but I don't envisage this year is going to bring a huge amount of joy, I'm afraid. I think as well, the consumers will start to rethink again very carefully about their holiday choices. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we've got an opportunity to do a bit of a reset. And I think that's a good thing. And let's say, look, even if it's people considering traveling, during times of the year, like the low seasons, like they might not have traveled before. That's an opportunity for us, you know, because a lot of people, especially in the UK, they won't, for whatever reason, they might not be getting away this summer. It might be because they have a fear. It might be because they can't. It might be because they lost their job and they haven't got the money now for a holiday. But they might be able to travel later on in the year or in the sort of, you know, the winter time. We've got an opportunity to let them experience the wonders of travel during low seasons and start to flatten out the seasonality. And I think that can be a good thing. So overall, I'm very optimistic. I think it's going to be short-term pain though before we see the gain.
Mm-hmm.